They say desperation makes you reckless. That when your stomach has been empty for 3 days and your landlord's given you until sunrise to produce rent or be thrown into the streets, you stop thinking like a rational person. You start thinking like someone with nothing left to lose. I never thought I'd be that person. But there I was, standing in the shadows of the Whisper Market, a place I'd heard about in hushed conversations at the apothecary where I sometimes sold my herbs. A place where the desperate came to find what couldn't be found anywhere else. A place where the line between the mundane world and something darker, something other, blurred until you couldn't tell which side you were standing on. The air was thick with incense and something primal I couldn't name. Musk. Fear. Ancient things that had no place in the modern world. Lanterns flickered overhead, casting shadows that moved wrong, too fluid, too aware. The crowd pressed around me. Figures in cloaks with eyes that reflected the lamplight like animals, merchants with smiles that promised everything and delivered nightmares, and a handful of wide-eyed newcomers like myself who hadn't yet realized what a mistake they'd made coming here. I clutched my grandmother's gold coin in my palm, feeling its warmth against my skin. It was all I had left of her. All I had left of anything, really. My parents had died when I was 8. A fever that swept through our district, taking the poor and leaving the rich untouched, as suffering always does. My grandmother raised me after that, teaching me her craft, herbs and remedies, old knowledge passed down through generations of women in our family. The moon remembers, she used to say, her gnarled fingers sorting through dried lavender. And so do we. I never understood what she meant. Not until tonight. Lot 13. The auctioneer's voice cut through my thoughts like a blade, gravelly, harsh, the kind of voice that had seen too many dark dealings. He banged his gavel on the podium, and the crowd surged forward. A rare specimen from the Whispering Woods. A wolf of unparalleled ferocity and beauty. Starting bid, 1 silver. I should have left then. I came here looking for moonflower root, rare, expensive, but worth enough to pay my rent and buy food for a week if I could brew it correctly. But something pulled my attention to the stage, to the line of cages that held creatures I tried not to look at too closely. And then I saw him. The wolf paced in his cage like a storm trapped in iron. His fur was midnight black, streaked with silver that caught the lamplight like stars scattered across darkness. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart. Gray, piercing, intelligent in a way that made my skin prickle with awareness. He was looking directly at me. Fresh wounds marred his flanks. Whip marks, cruel and deliberate. Chains bound his legs, the metal digging into his fur, drawing thin lines of blood. He'd been beaten, broken, put on display like an object, a thing to be sold to the highest bidder. And those eyes, they held something I recognized because I'd seen it in my own mirror every morning since my grandmother died 6 months ago. Please. Not a plea for mercy. A plea for dignity. For someone to see him as more than what they'd made him. 2 silvers, someone shouted. 5, called another. The bids climbed fast. The wolf never stopped watching me, even as the crowd's voices rose into a cacophony of greed. My grandmother's stories whispered through my mind, tales she'd told me before bed, of beasts with human souls, of guardians who walked between worlds, of bonds that transcended the ordinary and touched something ancient. Foolish stories, my practical mind insisted. But my heart remembered the way she'd look at the full moon with tears in her eyes, as if mourning something lost long ago. 10 silvers, the auctioneer shouted. Silence fell like a curtain. 10 silvers was more than most people here could afford. The wolf's eyes hadn't left mine, and I felt something crack open inside my chest, something that had been sealed shut since I'd watched them lower my grandmother's body into the ground. I couldn't save her. I couldn't save my parents. I'd spent my entire life being too late, too powerless, too small to change anything that mattered. But maybe, just maybe, I could save him. My hand rose before my mind could catch up, the gold coin burning against my palm like a brand. 1 gold. The words left my mouth in a voice that didn't sound like mine, stronger, clearer, certain in a way I hadn't been certain of anything in years. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed, calculating. A gold coin was worth far more than 10 silvers. It was worth more than this wolf, more than probably half the inventory here tonight. Sold. He slammed the gavel down with finality. To the lady in green. My legs trembled as I approached the stage, suddenly aware of every eye on me. What had I just done? That coin was supposed to buy me time, buy me safety. Instead, I'd just purchased something I didn't understand with money I couldn't afford to lose. The auctioneer's fingers were cold when I placed the coin in his palm. He examined it closely, turning it over, and something flickered across his face. Surprise? Recognition? Before I could analyze it, he pocketed the coin and gestured to his handlers. Take them to the eastern clearing, he said. Then, leaning close enough that only I could hear, he whispered, the moon remembers, daughter of wardens. As do we. My blood went cold. How did he? But he'd already turned away, calling out the next lot. The handlers dragged the wolf's cage toward a back exit, and I followed on numb legs, my mind reeling. Daughter of wardens. My grandmother's words. What did he know? The forest bordered the market like a living wall, dark and dense with secrets. They dumped the cage in a moonlit clearing, the silver light spilling through the canopy like liquid mercury. The wolf watched me as they unlocked the door and retreated, clearly happy to be rid of their dangerous cargo. We were alone. My fingers shook as I knelt beside the cage, reaching for the chains around his legs. You're free now, I whispered, fumbling with the clasp. The metal was cold, slick with his blood. Go. Before they change their minds. The chains fell away with a soft clink that seemed too loud in the night stillness. The wolf stepped out of the cage, shaking his massive frame. I scrambled back, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I was alone in the forest with a predator I'd just freed. Run, I urged, my voice breaking. Please, just run. He didn't run. Instead, his body began to convulse. Bones cracked like thunder, the sound making my stomach lurch. I watched in frozen horror as fur receded, as limbs elongated, as the wolf's form twisted and reformed into something impossible. Into someone. A man stood where the wolf had been. Tall. Muscular. Completely naked and utterly unashamed of it. His hair was as black as the wolf's pelt, falling in waves past his shoulders. His skin was marked with scars, some old and faded, others fresh from tonight's abuse. But his eyes. God, his eyes. They shifted from gray to gold, molten, burning, glowing like embers fresh from a forge. And they were fixed on me with an intensity that made everything else fade into insignificance. What? My voice failed. I tried again. Who are you? He moved like liquid shadow, powerful and predatory, closing the distance between us in 2 strides. I am Thorne, he said, his voice a low rumble that I felt in my bones. Alpha of the Shadow Pack. And you, little human, have just unbound a curse far greater than you know. Werewolves weren't real. Shifters belonged in fairy tales, in the stories my grandmother told, not standing naked in front of me with eyes that burned like captured fire. This isn't possible, I breathed, even as every instinct screamed that it was very, very real. Thorne's lips curved into something too sharp to be called a smile. Possible? Little one, you're standing in a market that trades in magic and monsters, and this is where you draw the line. He had a point. But I wasn't ready to admit it. I freed you. That's all. Go back to your pack, your people, wherever you came from. I started backing away, toward the forest path that would lead me back to the market, back to civilization, back to a world that made sense. Stop. The command in his voice halted me mid-step. Not because I wanted to obey, but because something made me. Some invisible thread pulled taut between us, and I felt it like a physical thing binding my chest. Thorne's golden eyes narrowed, reading my confusion. You feel it, don't you? The pull. I don't feel anything, I lied. Liar. He stepped closer, and that sent wild forests, pine, and something spicy that made my head swim, washed over me. The auction was no accident, Elara. My name in his mouth sent shivers down my spine. How do you know my name? The bond tells me many things. He circled me slowly, studying me like I was a puzzle he needed to solve. That coin you spent, it wasn't ordinary gold. It was enchanted. Passed down through your bloodline for generations, waiting for this moment. My grandmother's coin. The only thing she'd made me promise to keep safe. When the time comes, you'll know what to do with it, she'd said on her deathbed, her hand trembling in mine. Trust your heart, not your head. What did it do? I demanded, fear crawling up my throat. Thorne stopped in front of me, so close I could feel the heat radiating from his bare skin. By buying me with that coin, you've claimed me as your bondmate. Our fates are intertwined now, whether you like it or not. Our souls are linked. The forest spun. No, I don't accept that. I just wanted to help. Help. His laugh was dark, bitter. You've meddled in pack wars you can't comprehend. My enemies captured me, auctioned me off to weaken my claim to Alpha. Now, with this bond, you're a target too. Every wolf who wants me dead will come for you first. Terror and anger warred in my chest. Then break it. I don't want this. I don't want any of this. Something flickered in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, before his expression hardened. Breaking it would kill us both. The bond is ancient magic, sealed with your bloodline's power. The only way forward is together. Together, I repeated numbly. An hour ago, I was worried about Rent. Now I was apparently soul-bonded to a werewolf alpha with enemies who wanted him dead. This can't be happening. Thorne's expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained wary. I know this isn't what you wanted. But we don't have time for shock. We need to reach my territory before dawn, or neither of us will survive the night. Why should I trust you? Because right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and a very painful death. He glanced at the sky, where the moon hung heavy and full. They'll have scented the bond breaking by now. They'll come. As if summoned by his words, a howl split the night, distant but clear, filled with menace. Then another, closer. And another, until the forest echoed with the sound of a hunting pack. Thorne's eyes flashed gold. Run. He didn't wait to see if I'd obey. He shifted mid-stride, bones cracking and reforming with nauseating speed, until the massive black wolf stood before me. He jerked his head toward his back, an unmistakable command. You want me to ride you? I asked incredulously. He growled, impatient. Another howl, close enough that I could hear branches snapping under paws. Multiple sets of paws. I climbed onto his back, my fingers tangling in his thick fur. The moment my legs wrapped around him, that strange pull in my chest intensified, not painful, but overwhelming, like suddenly feeling someone else's heartbeat in rhythm with your own. Then we were moving. Thorne ran like the wind itself, weaving between trees with inhuman grace. I clung to him, branches whipping past, the forest a blur of shadow and moonlight. I could hear them behind us, snarls, panting, the thunder of paws on earth. They were gaining. The bond pulsed between us, and suddenly I understood it wasn't just tying us together. It was letting me feel what he felt, the strain in his muscles, the sharp focus of his mind, the protective fury that burned at the thought of them catching me. Mine, something in him growled. Mine to protect. I shouldn't have found it comforting, but I did. We burst into a clearing, and Thorne skidded to a halt, shifting back to human form in a fluid motion that left him crouched and ready. Stay behind me, he ordered. I scrambled off his back as shapes emerged from the tree line. Wolves, 6 of them, all bigger than any natural wolf had a right to be. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, amber, yellow, green. Predators sizing up their prey. And then she stepped into the clearing. Even in human form, she was stunning. Red hair that fell like a waterfall of blood over leather that hugged her curves. Amber eyes that held cruel intelligence. She moved with a predator's grace, her smile sharp enough to cut. Thorne, darling, she purred, her voice silk and venom mixed. Escaped already? And with a pet human? How quaint. Thorne's muscles tensed, his body a coiled weapon. The bond is sealed, Valeria. Stand down. Valeria's laugh was beautiful and terrible. Sealed? Oh, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. She circled us slowly, her pack following her lead. Kill the girl, and the bond shatters. You'll be weakened forever, Alpha. Your pack will crumble. Everything you've built, gone. The wolves lunged. Thorne shifted in a blur, meeting them head-on. Fur and fangs, snarls and blood, the clearing exploded into violence. I stood frozen for a heartbeat, watching him tear into the attackers with devastating efficiency. Then Valeria was there, her claws extended, reaching for my throat. Instinct took over. I grabbed a fallen branch, swinging it like my grandmother's walking stick when she'd teach me her defensive forms. "You're small, Elara," she'd say, "but small can be fast. Small can be unexpected." The branch connected with Valeria's ribs with a satisfying crack. She stumbled back, surprise flickering across her perfect face. And then something else happened. Power surged through me, not my own, but flowing through the bond from Thorne. Strength. Speed. Senses that sharpened until I could see every movement, smell the copper tang of blood, hear heartbeats like drums. My next swing had force behind it that shouldn't have been possible. The branch caught another wolf across the snout, sending it yelping backward. Through the chaos, I felt Thorne's surprise through the bond, quickly followed by something else. Pride? Desire? The emotions weren't mine, but they flooded through me anyway, distracting and intoxicating in equal measure. Focus, I commanded myself, even as my body moved with newfound grace, dodging claws and striking back with precision I didn't know I possessed. Valeria recovered, stalking toward me with murder in her eyes. "You're nothing but a tool," she hissed. "He doesn't care for you. He's using you for the power you grant him." Her words struck deeper than her claws could have. Was she right? Had Thorne manipulated this entire situation? But even as doubt crept in, images flooded my mind. Memories that weren't mine. Thorne as a young wolf, standing over his father's body, forced to take Alpha at 16. The crushing weight of responsibility. The loneliness of leadership. The yearning for someone who saw past the power to the person beneath. The bond was showing me his truth. Thorne dispatched the last attacker with a savage bite, then shifted back, bloodied but triumphant. His golden eyes found mine across the clearing, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. Valeria snarled, calling her remaining wolves to heel. "This isn't over, Thorne. That bond will be your undoing." She looked at me, her smile cruel. "Ask him why he was really at that auction, little human. Ask him about the curse." Then she was gone, melting into the shadows with her pack, leaving us alone in a clearing stained with blood and broken trust. I turned to Thorne, my body still thrumming with borrowed power, my mind reeling from the memories I'd seen. "Is she right? Are you using me?" He stood there, naked and covered in wounds that were already beginning to heal, his chest heaving. The moonlight painted him in silver, making him look like something out of legend, beautiful and terrible and other. At first, he admitted, his voice rough, "Perhaps I was." The bond grants the Alpha access to their mate's bloodline power. The warden magic in your veins makes me stronger, faster, nearly invincible. The honesty hurt worse than a lie would have. So this is all just. Wait. He closed the distance between us in 3 strides, his hand cupping my face with surprising gentleness. "Let me finish." Yes, I knew what the bond would do. But the bond works both ways, Elara. You've seen inside me now. You've felt what I feel. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I shivered despite myself. I've been Alpha for 12 years. 12 years of everyone wanting something from me, my strength, my protection, my authority. No one has ever looked at me the way you did in that cage. Like I was worth saving, not for what I could give, but just because. His golden eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way that made my chest ache. The bond shows me your heart. Your fierce kindness. Your courage. I've ruled alone for so long, convinced that's how it had to be. But maybe... His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Maybe fate knew better than I did. I should have pulled away. Should have demanded answers about the curse Valeria mentioned. Should have been thinking rationally about escape plans and broken bonds. Instead, I leaned into his touch, feeling the warmth of his palm against my skin, feeling his heartbeat sync with mine through the bond. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, his other hand sliding to the small of my back, Pulling me closer, we claim my pack's throne together. We show them that the bond makes us stronger, not weaker. And Valeria? Will come for us again. But next time, we'll be ready. His lips hovered just above mine, his breath warm against my skin. Together. The word hung between us, heavy with promise and danger. The bond hummed like a living thing, urging us closer, binding us tighter with every passing second. Thorne, I breathed, my hands finding his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart that matched my own. I'm afraid. Good, he murmured. Fear means you're smart enough to understand the danger. But you're also brave enough to face it anyway. His lips brushed mine, barely a kiss, more like a question. I answered by closing the distance. The kiss ignited like wildfire. His mouth claimed mine with fierce tenderness, and the bond exploded between us, a rush of sensation and emotion that overwhelmed everything else. I could feel his desire, his longing, his desperate need for connection that mirrored my own. And he could feel mine, every gasp and shiver, every wall crumbling inside me. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, his eyes had gone fully gold, burning with something that was part wolf, part man, and entirely focused on me. Mine, he growled softly, possessively. And God's help me, I didn't argue. We made it to Shadow Pack territory just as dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of blood and honey. Thorne had shifted back to wolf form for the journey, and I'd ridden on his back through the forest, my mind too fractured to process everything that had happened. I'd been soul-bonded to a werewolf. I'd fought off attackers with borrowed power. I'd kissed him, and it had felt like coming home and falling off a cliff. At the same time, the pack's settlement wasn't what I expected. Instead of caves or dens, there were cabins built among ancient trees, connected by rope bridges and wooden walkways. It looked almost normal, domestic even. But the wolves that emerged to greet us were anything but domestic. They came in human form, men and women of varying ages, all with that same predatory grace, all with eyes that assess me as a threat or a weakness or both. They bowed to Thorne, but their gazes on me ranged from curious to hostile. Your alpha has returned, Thorne announced, his voice carrying authority that made everyone straighten. And he brings his bondmate, Elara of the Warden line. Murmurs rippled through the gathered pack. Some looked shocked, others angry. A few seemed almost hopeful. An older man stepped forward, his silver hair tied back, his eyes a pale green. My alpha is this wise? Bringing a human here? Bonding with one of the old bloodlines? Valeria will use this against you. Let her try, Thorne said coldly. Elara fought beside me last night. She has proven herself. She's a liability, a woman snarled. Weak. Breakable. You've bound yourself to something that will get you killed. The words stung, mostly because part of me agreed with them. I was weak compared to them. I was breakable. What business did I have standing here among wolves, pretending I belonged? Thorne's hand found mine, his fingers lacing through mine with gentle firmness. She is my choice. Anyone who challenges, that challenges me. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. The pack backed down, though the tension remained thick enough to choke on. He led me to the largest cabin I assumed, and shut the door on the watching eyes. Inside, it was surprisingly comfortable. Furs and worn furniture, books stacked haphazardly, maps pinned to walls. It looked lived in. Human. They hate me, I said quietly, sinking onto a bench by the window. They fear you, Thorne corrected, finally pulling on clothes, leather pants, and a loose shirt that did nothing to hide the muscled lines of his body. The Warden bloodline once held power over shifters. Alliances, yes, but also control. They're afraid of what you might become. I'm nobody, I protested. I'm an orphaned herbalist who can barely afford bread. He knelt in front of me, his hands resting on my knees, his eyes. Now back to gray, serious. Your grandmother kept you hidden for a reason. Your bloodline carries magic that makes shifters stronger, faster, harder to kill. But it also means you can command us, bind us, if you knew how. The weight of that revelation pressed down on my chest. I don't want to command anyone. I know. His thumb traced circles on my knee, the touch both soothing and distracting. That's why the bond chose you. Power recognizes its equal, but kindness recognizes its need. Before I could respond, a sharp knock interrupted us. The silver-haired man entered, his expression grave. Alpha, we have a problem. Runners came from the eastern border. Valeria is gathering allies, not just her splinter pack, but rogues, exiles. She's building an army. Thorne stood, his entire demeanor shifting from gentle to lethal in a heartbeat. How many? At least 40. Maybe more. The older man's gaze flicked to me, calculating. She's telling them the bond has made you weak. That you've betrayed our kind by lying with a human. She's calling for a challenge. A challenge? I asked, though dread already told me what it meant. Trial by combat, Thorne said, his jaw tight. The old way. If she defeats me, she takes the pack. And me? I whispered. His eyes found mine, and the raw emotion in them made my breath catch. She'll kill you. Slowly. As an example to any who dare bond with humans. The silver-haired man cleared his throat. There might be another way. The old laws allow for the bondmate to participate in the challenge. If you both fight? No, Thorne cut him off flatly. Absolutely not. It might be our only chance, the man pressed. Valeria is strong, but not as strong as you two bonded. The warden magic. I said no, Marcus. Thorne's voice dropped to a growl. I won't risk her. But I was already standing, my mind racing. The bond let me feel his fear, not for himself, but for me. His absolute conviction that he'd die before letting me be hurt. It was beautiful and infuriating in equal measure. What if I want to fight? I asked. Both men stared at me. Thorne shook his head. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I moved closer to him, holding his gaze. You said the bond makes us stronger together. Prove it. Teach me how to use this power. Give me a chance to stand beside you, not behind you. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, pride, and something deeper that made heat pool in my stomach. You would do this? Risk your life for a pack that doesn't even accept you. I'm doing it for you, I said simply. The truth of it hung between us. Despite everything, the forced bond, the danger, the impossibility of it all, something had shifted in the past day. He'd become more than just my bondmate. He'd become someone I couldn't bear to lose. Thorne's control cracked. He pulled me against him, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was desperate and consuming. Through the bond, I felt his terror and his hope, his desire and his devotion, all tangled up until I couldn't tell where his emotions ended and mine began. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. 3 days, he murmured. Marcus, tell Valeria we accept. The challenge will be in 3 days at moonrise. Marcus bowed and left, leaving us alone with the weight of what we'd just agreed to. 3 days to train me? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. 3 days to make sure you survive. His hands framed my face, his thumbs stroking my cheekbones. And 3 days to find another way out of this. But we both knew there was no other way. Not really. The next 2 days passed in a blur of training and growing connection. Thorne taught me to channel the bond's power, to move with the enhanced speed and strength it granted. Marcus, who I learned was Thorne's second, his most trusted advisor, drilled me in basic combat. But it was the nights that changed everything. Alone in Thorne's cabin, with moonlight streaming through windows and the forest breathing around us, the bond deepened into something neither of us had anticipated. He told me about his father, a brutal alpha who'd ruled through fear until his own pack turned on him. About taking leadership at 16 and swearing to be different better. I told him about my parents' deaths, about my grandmother's mysterious warnings, about years of loneliness and feeling like I didn't quite fit anywhere. You fit here, he'd whispered one night, his fingers tangled in my hair, our bodies pressed close under furs. With me. And I'd believed him. On the third night, hours before the challenge, I couldn't sleep. The bond hummed with Thorne's own restlessness as he stood by the window, watching the moon rise full and heavy. Elara, he said quietly, not turning around. If something goes wrong tomorrow, Don't, I interrupted, coming to stand beside him. We're going to win. He finally looked at me, and something in his expression made my heart stutter. Regret? Guilt? You should know something. About the bond. About everything. Thorne. Just listen. His hand found mine, gripping tight. The curse Valeria mentioned. It's real. My blood went cold. What curse? He was quiet for a long moment, gathering words. The bond isn't just about connection. It's about consumption. My eyes turn gold when I draw on your warden power, yes. But every time I do, I take some of your life force. Feed on it, essentially. I pulled my hand back, stumbling away from him. What? The bond was designed generations ago to give alphas access to warden magic. But it wasn't meant to be equal. His voice was hollow, defeated. Over time, the bonded human weakens. Fades. Eventually, dies. While the alpha gains years, decades even, of extended life. The room spun. I thought of the past 3 days, the strength I'd felt through him, the power coursing through our connection. How many times had his eyes flashed gold? How much had he taken? You knew, I breathed. This whole time you knew. Yes. The simple admission broke something in me. The auction. You weren't just captured, were you? You orchestrated it. Thorne's silence was answer enough. You needed a warden descendant, I continued, puzzle pieces clicking into sickening place. You arranged your own capture, knowing the enchanted coin would surface, knowing someone with my bloodline would be drawn there. You planned this. My pack was dying, he said roughly, finally looking at me with those gray eyes I'd come to trust. Without warden magic, we're vulnerable to the splinter packs, to hunters, to every threat that wants us extinct. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. My voice cracked. You could have told me. Asked me. Instead you let me think. Tears burned behind my eyes. I thought what we had was real. It is real. He stepped toward me, but I backed away. Elara, I didn't expect this. Any of this. I thought I could keep it transactional, controlled. But you. His voice broke. You made me feel things I'd forgotten I was capable of feeling. I'm in love with you, and it's destroying me because I know what this bond will do to you. How long? I demanded. How long do I have? Years, maybe. If we're careful. If I don't draw on the bond too much. Years. A bitter laugh escaped me. How generous. And tomorrow? When we fight Valeria. How much will you take then? He flinched. As little as possible. Which means we'll lose. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the fire crackling in the hearth. Either I let you drain me and we win, or I keep you out and we both die. Those are my options. I'm sorry. The words sounded broken in his mouth. I'm so goddamn sorry. I wanted to scream. To hit him. To demand he break this cursed bond even if it killed us both. But more than that, I wanted to understand how he could look at me with such devastation in his eyes and have done this to me anyway. Valeria wasn't trying to kill me, I realized. She was trying to warn me. Thorne's jaw clenched. Valeria wants power, not justice. Don't paint her as a hero. But she told me the truth. Which is more than you did. I moved toward the door, needing space, needing air. I need to think. Elara, wait. Don't. I held up a hand, stopping him. Just, don't. I fled into the night, into the forest that had become almost familiar over the past 3 days. The pack's settlement faded behind me as I ran, tears streaming down my face, the bond pulling painfully in my chest like a leash I couldn't remove. How could I have been so stupid? So naive? I'd let him into my heart, into my soul, all while he was slowly killing me. I didn't hear the footsteps until it was too late. Running away? Valeria stepped from the shadows, her red hair gleaming in the moonlight. But there was no cruelty in her expression now, only weary understanding. I did the same thing when I learned the truth. I stumbled to a stop, tensing. You were bonded to him? No. She moved closer, hands raised to show she meant no harm. To his father. I was young, desperate, and stupid. The old alpha offered me power, a place in the pack. By the time I understood the cost, I was too deep to escape. My grandmother's stories echoed in my mind, Warnings about wolves and bonds, about magic that demanded too high a price. How did you survive? Barely. Valeria's amber eyes held old pain. I managed to break the bond before it killed me, but it cost me my shifting ability. I can't become wolf anymore, not fully. I'm stuck between forms, neither human nor beast. That's why I want Thorne's position, to change the laws, to ban these bonds forever. Then why not just tell him that? Why the attacks, the threats? Because he's a true believer, she said sadly. Thorne thinks he can control it, be different from his father. But the curse doesn't care about intentions. It only knows consumption. She paused. I'm sorry I tried to kill you. I thought if you died quickly, it would be kinder than the slow death the bond promises. I sank onto a fallen log, my legs giving out. What do I do? Break it. Tonight. There's a ritual, your grandmother would have known it. I can help you perform it before the challenge tomorrow. Thorne said it would kill us both. It might, Valeria admitted. Or you might survive if you're strong enough. But staying bonded will definitely kill you. At least this way, you have a chance. I thought of Thorne's face when he confessed. The genuine anguish in his eyes. The way he'd said he loved me, like the words were being torn from his soul. He orchestrated his own capture, I said numbly. Planned all of this. That's the part that should terrify you most. Valeria sat beside me, her shoulder touching mine in unexpected solidarity. Not that he's willing to use you, but that he's convinced himself it's justified. Love doesn't excuse manipulation, Elara. And power doesn't excuse consumption. She was right. I knew she was right. But the bond pulsed in my chest, carrying Thorne's emotions, his fear, his regret, his desperate love that felt as real as my own heartbeat. The bond was designed to bind, to make separation agonizing, to ensure the human couldn't walk away even knowing the truth. That was the most insidious curse of all. Show me the ritual, I whispered. The ritual site was in ruins my grandmother had mentioned once, old stones carved with symbols I didn't understand arranged in a circle under the full moon. Valeria had brought candles, silver blades, herbs I recognized from my grandmother's collection. The bond is anchored in blood, she explained, drawing a circle around the largest stone. Your blood and his. To break it, you offer your blood freely, reject the bond 3 times, and sever the connection before it kills you both. Before it kills me, you mean, I corrected. She didn't deny it. The alpha usually survives. Though weakened. You're the one at risk. I knelt by the stone, rolling up my sleeve. The night air was cold, but my skin felt feverish. Through the bond, I could feel Thorne's panic. He discovered I was gone, was searching for me. Don't, his voice echoed in my mind through the bond. Elara, please don't do this. He can feel what I'm doing, I told Valeria. Then we need to be fast. She handed me the silver blade. Your blood on the stone. Then speak the words. I pressed the blade to my palm, feeling the sharp bite of pain. Blood welled up, dark in the moonlight. I let it drip onto the ancient stone, watching it pool in carved grooves that had held countless other sacrifices. I reject this bond, I said, my voice shaking. I reclaim my life as my own. Power surged through the bond, Thorne trying to stop me, to pull me back. Pain lanced through my chest, sharp enough to steal my breath. You'll die, his voice begged in my mind. I can't lose you. I love you. I reject this bond, I said again, stronger. I reclaim my choice, stolen from me. The pain intensified, spreading through my body like fire. I could feel the bond trying to hold on, hooks buried deep in my soul that tore as I pulled away. Through the agony, I felt Thorne running through the forest, desperate to reach me. And I felt something else. Hidden beneath the pain, beneath the panic. Relief. Not Thorne's relief. My own. The part of me that had been screaming since the moment I learned the truth, the part that knew staying meant a slow death, the part that refused to be consumed no matter how beautifully it was packaged. I reject this bond, I said for the 3rd time. I am not yours to take. The world exploded in white light and searing pain. I felt the bond snap like a physical thing, felt something vital tear loose from my chest. Blood poured from my nose, my ears. My vision darkened at the edges. But I also felt free. Thorne burst into the clearing, shifting mid-stride, naked and wild. No, but it was too late. The bond was already unraveling, the threads that had connected us burning away like morning mist. His golden eyes flickered, faded to gray, then dimmed entirely. I collapsed onto the stone, feeling my life slipping away. Worth it, I thought distantly. Better to die free than live as someone's slowly drained battery. Elara. Thorne's hands were on me, gathering me against his chest. His face swam in my blurring vision. Why? Why would you? Because you would have killed me anyway, I whispered. Just slowly. Pain and understanding warred in his expression. I never wanted. I know. And I did. The bond might be broken, but I'd seen into his soul. He hadn't wanted to hurt me. But he would have, because his pack came first, because power demanded sacrifice, because that's what alphas did. Valeria knelt beside us, her hands glowing with amber light. Move, Thorne. Let me try to save her. You planned this, he snarled at her. You wanted her to die. No, Valeria said firmly. I wanted her to choose. There's a difference. She placed her glowing hands on my chest, and warmth spread through me, not the consuming heat of the bond, but something gentler. Healing. Her face contorted with effort, sweat beading on her forehead. The ritual usually kills, she gritted out. But she's got warden blood. Strong blood. If I can just... The world tilted. Consciousness slipped away. When I woke, dawn was breaking. I was lying on soft furs in a cabin I didn't recognize. Valeria sat in a chair nearby, looking exhausted. Outside, I could hear voices arguing. You're alive, Valeria said, relief evident in her voice. I sat up slowly, feeling fragile but whole. The bond? Broken. Completely. She offered me water, which I drank greedily. You'll be weak for a while, but you'll survive. More than that, you'll be free. The word felt precious. Impossible. And Thorne? Alive but diminished. The bond breaking stripped away most of the warden power he'd absorbed. He's still alpha, but he won't be for long unless he regains his strength somehow. Valeria paused. Elara, there's something you should know. When the bond broke, it revealed something. The curse, it doesn't just drain life. It was designed to make the bonded human believe they wanted to be drained. Every feeling you had for him. How much was real, and how much was the bond compelling you to love him? The question hit me like a physical blow. All those moments, the kisses, the confessions, the desperate need to stay by his side even when I knew better. How much had been me, and how much had been ancient magic manipulating my heart? I don't know, I admitted. Outside, the voices grew louder. Then Thorne appeared in the doorway, looking haggard. His eyes were gray now, permanently it seemed, and there were shadows under them I'd never seen before. Elara. My name was a prayer in his mouth. You're awake. I didn't know what to say. Looking at him now, I still felt something. But was it love, or just the ghost of what the bond had made me feel? The challenge is in an hour, Valeria said into the silence. What do you want to do? Thorne's jaw tightened. I'll fight alone. As Alpha should. You'll lose, I said flatly. Without the bond, without the warden power. Then I lose. His eyes met mine, and I saw something that might have been relief beneath the resignation. But I won't bind another person to save myself. Not ever again. Valeria stood. There might be another way. Elara, your warden blood doesn't need a bond to grant power. You could choose to help him. Voluntarily. For the fight only. Why would I? The question came out harsher than I intended. Thorne flinched, but didn't look away. You shouldn't. I don't deserve your help or your forgiveness. But... He took a shaky breath. If I fall, Valeria won't just take my pack. She'll reform the laws, yes. But she'll also execute everyone who supported the old bonds. Marcus, the elders, even the young ones who never knew any different. They'll all die for my father's sins. I looked at Valeria, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Is that true? They supported a system that kills humans, she said coldly. They chose sides. They're not all guilty, I argued, thinking of Marcus who'd trained me patiently, of the young wolves who'd started watching me with hope rather than fear. Not everyone deserves to die for being born into a broken system. And not everyone deserves to live after perpetuating it, Valeria countered. We stood at an impasse. Thorne's pack or Valeria's justice. Neither option was clean, neither was right. What if there was a third way? I asked slowly. What if I helped Thorne win, but on my conditions? The bonds end. Permanently. No new ones ever formed. The old laws change, but no executions. We build something new together. Both of them stared at me. You would trust him again? Valeria asked incredulously. After everything? I don't trust him, I admitted, meeting Thorne's eyes. But I trust that he loves his pack enough to do what's right for them. And maybe that's enough to start with. Thorne looked at me like I'd hung the moon. Elara, I don't. I can't ask this of you. You're not asking. I'm choosing. I stood, my legs steadier now. But hear me clearly, Thorne. This is temporary. For the fight only. After that, I walk away. And you let me. No bonds, no manipulation, no following me. We end this the way we should have begun, with choice. Agreed, he said immediately. Whatever you want. I swear it. Valeria looked between us, then laughed. A sound more surprised than amused. You're either the most forgiving person I've ever met, or the most foolish. Maybe both, I said. The challenge took place in a clearing ringed by wolves from 3 packs. Valeria had gathered her forces, but so had Thorne. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Valeria and 2 of her strongest warriors faced us. No rules, no mercy. Fight until someone yielded or died. Ready? Thorne asked me quietly. I nodded, placing my hand on his arm. This time, when I channeled my warden power into him, it was different. Clean. Consensual. His eyes flashed gold, but I felt no drain, no consumption. Just power flowing freely between us because I chose to give it. The fight was brutal and fast. Together, we moved like one being, my power amplifying his strength, his instincts guiding my strikes. It wasn't the same as the bond, it was better because it was real. When Valeria finally yielded, blood streaming from a dozen wounds, the clearing erupted in howls, some victorious, some disappointed. Thorne stood over her, his chest heaving. Do you accept my terms? The bonds end. The laws change. No executions for those who agree to the new way. Valeria looked at him, then at me, then laughed weakly. You found someone who actually makes you better. Fine. I accept. But I'm watching you, Thorne. One slip, and I'll finish what I started. Fair enough. As the crowd dispersed, Thorne turned to me. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I pulled my hand from his arm, severing the power flow. His eyes faded back to gray. I meant what I said. I'm leaving. I know. He didn't try to stop me. Where will you go? Don't know yet. Somewhere far from wolves and bonds and magic. I paused. But I'll come back. Eventually. To make sure you keep your word. Something like hope flickered in his expression. And maybe someday, if I can prove I'm worthy of your trust, we could start again? Properly this time. I looked at him, this beautiful, broken alpha who'd tried to consume me and somehow learned to let me go instead. Maybe. If you can become someone who doesn't need power to feel whole. If I can figure out who I am without a bond telling me what to feel. That's fair, he said softly. I started walking, feeling lighter with each step. Free. Uncertain. Terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Elara. Thorne called out when I reached the clearing's edge. I looked back. For what it's worth, everything I felt was real. The bond might have started it, but what I feel now, without it, that's all me. I wanted to believe him. Part of me even did. Prove it, I called back. Become the alpha who doesn't need a bond to be strong. Build a pack worth coming back to. Then we'll see. His smile was sad but genuine. Deal. As I disappeared into the forest, I felt something I hadn't felt since before my grandmother died. Hope. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I might become now that I was free to choose my own path. Behind me, I heard a howl, long, mournful, and filled with promise. Other howls joined it, creating a song that followed me into the dawn. The story wasn't over. But for the first time, it was mine to write. Want to know what happens when Elara returns? Drop a comment and let me know if you'd face down a shifter pack or run the other way. And if you're hungry for more werewolf romance with bonds that bite and alphas who beg, hit subscribe, because trust me, we're just getting started with the Shadow Pack secrets.